Radhika, a very warm welcome to all of you to the Set Opportunity Day of PTL to discuss the performance of Q3. So let's start with the company overview for new joinees. Polyplex is one of the largest producers of synbopet films, which is our core business. Globally, we rank number 2 if we exclude China, and we are the largest in Southeast Asia. We have 7 manufacturing plants at a group level with operations in all the key geographies, Americas, Europe, and Asia. And we are the most integrated producer of PET films with backward integration into producing our own PET resin and downstream and sidestream investments, delivering one of the widest product portfolios in the industry across a host of applications in the packaging and industrial segments. Let's go over the performance for the quarter and the 9 months YTD period. The last quarter has been quite weak and very challenging for the industry on the whole, not just for our company. But despite the multiple challenges in the industry, we have been able to operate our assets at optimal levels and achieve volume growth and have delivered reasonably healthy normalized EBITDA of Thai baht 711 million for the quarter and Thai baht 3.2 billion for YTD. Although this is a decline in comparison to the past few quarters' performance, let's move on to the next slide to see the quarter-on-quarter and year-on-year trend and understand a bit more in detail on the factors which caused this drop in our earnings. So as we can see from the snapshot, we have been able to grow our sales volumes, but we see a considerable dip in the EBITDA margins and our EPS on quarter-on-quarter as well as year-on-year basis. It's important to understand and appreciate some of the key factors which adversely impacted the industry in this quarter and consequentially the financial performance of all the players, including Polyplex. Number one, there were several new lines which started up in China and India, which put significant pressure on the pricing and the margins of our core business of PET films. We have been stating in the past that bunching up of capacities can put some pressure on the margins until the new capacities gradually get absorbed into the markets. Secondly, the pressure of the new capacities was further compounded by destocking, which slowed down the demand across various geographies and squeezed our margins further. We did mention about the destocking in the last quarter as well, that all producers along the supply chain were carrying excessive inventory, which was accumulated over the last 2 years due to uncertainty in the COVID times. And everyone was basically now trying to reduce their inventory levels back to the normal levels. And hence we saw the slowdown in demand because of the destocking impact. The October to December quarter, as we are all aware, is usually a lean quarter due to the holiday season in US and Europe. And also December being a financial year end for most companies, there is a general tendency to slow down on the orders to manage inventory levels and the current assets on the balance sheet. So in addition to the new capacity and the destocking impact, we also witnessed a sharp increase in the fixed overheads, mainly in the utility cost due to a high spike in the energy prices, particularly in Europe. And this impacted our EBITDA further as the increase in the cost could not be passed on to the customers given the tight market scenario. We also had to book some inventory losses due to sharp decline in the raw material prices. Lastly, for PTL specifically, the reported earnings got further adversely impacted because of unrealized forex losses on the loan restatements, which obviously we do adjust the same for presenting the normalized EBITDA earnings of the company. So although the reported numbers show a net loss, we have normalized PAT of 417 million for the quarter after adjusting forex losses of about Thai baht 460 million in the quarter. Moving on, let's look at this EBITDA bridge chart, which explains the movement of EBITDA quarter on quarter. So as you may note, the major variance is on account of a lower value addition rate in the PET and the BOPP business. And apart from this, there's also a sharp increase in the fixed overheads because of the utility cost increase, as I just explained in the earlier slide. Let's move on to the next section on the success enablers. So we would like to share with you on some of the key attributes of our business model, which we believe has helped us improve our competitive positioning in the industry over the last few years and be successful. We are probably one of the very few players combining several such key attributes like global and fully integrated manufacturing setup, a geographically well-diversified sales and distribution network, a wide product portfolio with a high share of specialty products, continued focus on operational and cost efficiencies, and focus on environmental social governance. So talking about the first attribute, so from this global footprint map, you would note that our strength is from our presence in almost all the key markets, all the key demand centers across the globe. So we are either present there through a manufacturing setup, or if a manufacturing base is not possible, we are present through our sales and distribution, trading office setup, rep office, liaison office, or sales agent representation. And this kind of a model has helped us over the years to penetrate deep into the markets and grow and diversify our global customer base to currently over 2,600 customers. Moving on to the industry value chain. This is the entire value chain of this industry, and the highlighted part is the area in which Polyplex operates, which we believe is quite differentiated from the rest of the value chain. And we have fully integrated manufacturing at all our locations with backward integration into producing our own PET resins and downstream integration into a host of coated films. The next key attribute we believe is our continued focus on enhancing our differentiated or our specialty product portfolio. And we believe that this is one of the key strategies which has helped us to counter the volatility in the standard film segment and outperform our competition. So DPAC is basically the terminology that we use to refer to our specialty portfolio. So DPAC means differentiated product, differentiated application, differentiated customer. So when we talk about differentiated product, this is with reference to some special features in the product which offer a unique value proposition for our customers. These are the products where competition is also limited. Differentiated application refer to specific applications in a standard product, but these are not well known in the market and hence create a better value proposition for our customers. And again, the competition here is limited. Differentiated customer refers to customers where there are significant entry barriers due to stringent quality norms, long qualification processes, or significant trial cost. So this is basically, in short, the differentiated product, differentiated application, and differentiated customer, which creates the specialty product portfolio for us. And over the last 5 years, we have improved or consciously increased our efforts towards enhancing the volumes on this specialty product portfolio. So our timely initiatives and investments into enhancing our production capacities to grow this portfolio has structured in the form of year-on-year expansion of our DPAC sales, both in terms of volume and also in terms of the incremental EBITDA that we've been able to generate by operating in this DPAC segment. So this graph clearly demonstrates this. And talking about the incremental EBITDA from DPAC, the graph on the right-hand side shows that in this financial year, basically in the 9 months of 22-23, we have already surpassed the EBITDA of Thai baht 1.8 billion generated in the entire 12 months of 21-22. So this also clearly demonstrates that had Polyplex not been operating in this specialty segment, our EBITDA would have been lower to the extent of the figures that have been shown here. So moving on to the next key attribute, which is our global and well-diversified customer base. At PTL console level, we have a large customer base of over 2,000 customers spread geographically across 75 countries. We have a very good mix of sales in the packaging and industrial segments with varied end-use applications across several industries. And because of the geographical diversification of customers, the customer concentration risk for us is quite low, with our top 10 customers accounting for less than 30% of our sales. Moving on to our capacity utilization factor and the comparison to the industry CUF factor. So you will note from this graph that Polyplex CUF has always remained 100% because of our debottlenecking initiatives that we've taken across different multiple manufacturing locations, as well as our widespread market reach. And the high CUF in comparison to the industry is owing to specific factors such as large customer base, our unmatched product portfolio across packaging and industrial applications, our local presence in all the key demand centers, and our unique ability to move material across geographies depending on the local market conditions. So this has, in a sense, resulted in a steady growth in our CUF. We have been able to operate our assets at 100%. So if we look at the long-term trend of our financial performance, we have been able to demonstrate a healthy track record of growth. So if you look at the volumes in the last 2 years, the volume growth has mainly come from capacity expansions that have been done, mainly in BOPET and BOPP film in Indonesia, apart from several other downstream value-added capacities that were added in Turkey and Thailand. On the other financial indicators, despite the current industry situation and the pressure on the EBITDA margin and the EBITDA per kg that we just discussed a little earlier, we have been able to deliver absolute EBITDA at reasonable and positive levels. Our cash flow from operations are also healthy, continue to stay positive. And despite significant capex investments in the last 4 to 5 years, we think that our net debt position, after considering the cash and cash equivalents and the investments that we have in fixed deposits and bonds, is quite comfortable and gives us the right platform to consider any large expansions or growth opportunities in the near future. If we look at the ROCE, ROE, and EPS, over the last 5 years, we see growth, but there is a decline in this quarter, which is in line with the drop in the profitability because of the market factors that we just discussed. Our next key attribute is our commitment to sustainable growth. Commitment to environmental social governance is integrated into our company culture. We have always been mindful and we will continue to strive to create sustainable products and through sustainable processes. We understand the importance of corporate social responsibility and keep participating in various initiatives in all the communities that we operate in. And currently we are extending all the support possible for the earthquake relief measures that are being taken in Turkey. We have a high level of commitment to sustainability, which is demonstrated by the collaborations or alignment of our business goals that we have with various CPGs, government and industry bodies. Our investment into post-industrial waste and post-consumer waste recycling through our subsidiary in Thailand, EcoBlue. We work on reducing the waste generation in the first place, and we are constantly working on expanding our sustainable product portfolio, expanding our sustainable applications and processes. Moving on, these are some of the prestigious awards that Polyplex as a group has received over the last couple of years. Moving on to the relative stability in our earnings. So this graph basically shows the trend of Polyplex's margin in comparison to the China VA, which is a reflective of the industry margins. And you would note that over a longer period of time, Polyplex has been able to deliver relatively stable margins as compared to industry. The drop in the value addition levels for Q3 is attributable to the specific market factors that we just explained. And the second aspect that we are trying to highlight in this graph is the correlation of our margins to the crude oil prices. So as we all know, the pricing of our key raw materials, PTA and MEG, are no doubt linked to the crude oil prices. But what we are trying to convey here is that the margins are more dependent on the industry CUF factor, not so much correlated to the crude oil price movement as such. Talking a bit on the industry outlook. As we have been stating in the last couple of quarters, there are a lot of new capacity additions that are being planned over the next 2 to 3 years. Majority of these new capacities are being added in the low-cost developing nations like China and India. And bunching up of the capacity startups could add temporary pressures on the margins until each new capacity gets absorbed in the market. Out of the some of the latest lines that were announced recently in China, we get to learn that these are for non-packaging segments with specific focus on certain optical and high release liner applications. So we believe that the impact on the flexible packaging segment from these lines could be minimal. If we exclude China from the overall industry CUF, the CUF is expected to be more steadier with lower variance in peaks and troughs. And moreover, any deferment or any delay in any of these new lines, or say a closure or underutilization of existing lines due to the changing cost dynamics, could further positively impact the outlook on the utilization rates over what has been shown here. Moving on to our growth capex plans. So currently, the only large investment that we are having is at the subsidiary in the US. So we are having a project with a capital cost of $125 million, which is basically investment in a BOPET thin film line, an offline coater, and for upgrading our PET resin capacity to cater to 2 film lines. This project is expected to start up in Q1 of 2024-25, and Polyplex continues to remain confident of being able to ramp up this line quickly due to the well-established sales and distribution network that we have set up in North America. And post the startup of the second line in the US, Polyplex will become the most competitive producer of PET films in the US. So we come to the end of our presentation. Thank you very much, and we open the floor for question and answers. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So we have several questions on the board. So I'll start with question number 1. So how does the management expect company's performance for this quarter? Does previous quarters' poor performance continue this quarter? How does the outlook for our business going forward? Does the earthquake in Turkey affect our business? Okay, so I think if I look at this question and subsequent couple of questions, so there are queries around the performance in this quarter, what we expect in the current quarter and going forward, and also around the earthquake in Turkey. Quickly taking up the earthquake in Turkey. So this earthquake in Turkey, the magnitude and scale was really devastating, a huge loss of lives. As a company, we are contributing to earthquake relief actions in Turkey in whatever way and form we can. Just to highlight, this earthquake happened in east of Turkey, let's say southeast of Turkey. It's quite far from where Polyplex operations are. So obviously our operations in any which ways have not been impacted by this earthquake. Also, our facility is set up in the least or a very low risk, low earthquake risk zone within Turkey. So we don't really, see any likelihood of getting impacted by earthquake activities in future. So that is as far as the Turkish earthquake is concerned.
สวัสดีครับนะครับก็เห็นมีทางด้านของนักลงทุนนะครับหลายต่อหลายท่านให้ความสนใจในเรื่องเกี่ยวกับการถามมาเกี่ยวกับผลประกอบการในไตรมาสนี้นะครับเมื่อเปรียบเทียบกับทางด้านของผลประกอบการนะครับในไตรมาสที่ผ่านมานะครับซึ่งก็อาจจะไม่ดีนักเท่าไหร่รวมทั้งนะครับมีคำถามเกี่ยวข้องกับในเรื่องของผลของการเกิดแผ่นดินไหวที่นะครับประเทศเตอร์ไคก็ทางด้านของท่านผู้บริหารได้เรียนให้ทราบนะครับเนื่องจากผลของแผ่นดินไหวครั้งนี้นะครับมีความร้ายแรงมากนะครับก่อให้เกิดการสูญเสียชีวิตก็มากมายทีเดียวแล้วก็ความเสียหายกับทรัพย์สินมากมายทางด้านของบริษัท Polyplex นะครับก็พยายามจะช่วยเหลือนะครับกับทางด้านของผู้ประสบเหตุให้มากที่สุดเท่าที่เราทำได้นะครับถ้าพูดถึงเรื่องผลกระทบกับของธุรกิจของเรานะครับเนื่องจากทางด้านของ Facility ของเรานั้นตั้งอยู่ห่างไกลนะครับจากจุดที่เกิดแผ่นดินไหวเพราะฉะนั้นนะครับผลกระทบนะครับมีน้อยมากครับรวมทั้งทางด้านของ Facility ของเรานั้นตั้งอยู่ในพื้นที่ที่มีความเสี่ยงน้อยมากนะครับที่จะเกิดแผ่นดินไหวเพราะฉะนั้นจึงนะครับไม่มีผลนะครับกระทบใดๆที่ร้ายแรงจากแผ่นดินไหวในครั้งนี้ครับ Thank you. Next question, please.
Okay, coming to this quarter's performance and the performance of the previous quarter. So as we had mentioned in the last set opportunity day as well, there are two major factors which impacted the performance of the quarter. One was demand. So demand, the apparent demand, as I call it always, not the real demand. Real demand continues to be strong, healthy, and continues to grow at a rate of 6 to 8%. So there is no problem as far as real demand for flexible packaging is concerned. On the apparent demand, we saw a drop in demand by approximately 20 to 30% in the previous quarter. Owing to destocking, all the converters and CPGs had stocked up over last 1.5, 2 years. Under the pressure of supply chain disruptions, whether the material will arrive or not arrive, congestion at the ports. So all that led to a heavy stock situation. So there was an impact of destocking leading to apparent demand, loss of apparent demand. In addition, the problem was compounded by severe lockdown in China and also year closure. But December is year closing for several companies across the world, and companies want to keep a low stock level in December. So all this led to 20 to 30% loss of demand. Now the good news is in this moving into this quarter, which is generally a strong quarter globally, we have seen a very sharp recovery in demand. I would say if the demand loss was 20 to 30%, almost 70-80% is already back. So as far as the demand is concerned, we are seeing a recovery in demand, and we expect a full recovery in another month or two. So that was as far as the demand is concerned. On the other hand, there was a pressure on margins owing to new startups, which Suprita also mentioned. So several lines started up in China and in India in the previous quarter, which obviously, if you have so many capacities bunching up altogether, there is a pressure on margin, and this led to very low margins, which are not sustainable as far as in China and India. So we also have a few lines starting up in the running quarter, both in China and India. We expect around 3 lines starting up in India in this quarter, 2 to 3 lines, and around 5 to 6 lines starting up in China. So because of this bunching up, the pressure will remain on the margins on this quarter. However, the demand is healthy. Another silver lining is if you look at the Suprita, if you can just go to the previous slide where you had given the China value additions. So if you see, China value additions have been at this levels for last 3 quarters. So we are at the bottom of the margin, both in India, bottom of value addition or spreads, as one may call them, over raw material for last 2-3 quarters, both in India and China. So from here, the industry will only look upwards because these margins are unsustainable and they barely cover the variable cost for these producers who are operating at these margin levels. So from here onwards, the demand is showing recovery and margins will also look upwards in months or quarters to come.
สำหรับนะครับผลประกอบการของในไตรมาสนี้นะครับถ้าเปรียบเทียบกับทางด้านของไตรมาสที่ผ่านมานะครับจะเห็นได้ว่าก็มีอยู่ 2-3 ปัจจัยนะครับที่ส่งผลกระทบกับผลประกอบการของเราข้อแรกครับก็คือในเรื่องของอุปสงค์หรือความต้องการทางด้านของผลิตภัณฑ์ของเรานะครับหรือที่เรียกว่า apparent demand นั้นอาจจะลดลงนะครับในไตรมาสที่ผ่านมาประมาณ 20-25% นะครับแต่จริงๆแล้วทางด้านของตัวอุปสงค์ที่แท้จริงนะครับก็ยังคงมีความแข็งแกร่งอยู่นะครับและก็คงยังเติบโตอย่างต่อเนื่องอยู่ที่ 6-7% นะครับและก็ปัจจัยที่2ก็คือในเรื่องของการล็อกดาวน์ของประเทศจีนนะครับในช่วงไตรมาสที่ผ่านมารวมทั้งในช่วงตอนนะครับสิ้นปีในช่วงของปีที่แล้วนะครับทางด้านของบริษัทต่างๆนะครับก็คือกำลังนะครับทางด้านของที่จะมีการในส่วนของการหยุดการประกอบกิจการในช่วงสิ้นปีนะครับก็เลยส่งผลให้ก่อกับผลประกอบการของเรานะครับเป็นชั่วคราวนะครับแต่ถ้าดูนะครับแล้วก็แรงกดดันอีกทางด้านหนึ่งครับก็คือในเรื่องของทางด้านของตัวอุปทานนะครับหรือว่าทางด้านของซัพพลายของเราจะเห็นได้ว่าสายการผลิตที่มีการเริ่มต้นใหม่นะครับในประเทศอินเดียก็ 2-3 สายการผลิตนะครับรวมทั้งในจีนที่จะมีการเริ่มต้นนะครับสายการผลิตใหม่ก็อีกประมาณ 5-6 สายนะครับก็ส่งผลให้กับทางด้านของมีผลกระทบให้ margin ของเรานะครับก็คือลดลงแต่ว่าผลที่เกิดขึ้นชั่วคราวเท่านั้นนะครับ ก็ทางด้านของ margin ของเราที่เกิดผลกระทบลดลงนั้นก็มาถึงที่จุดต่ำสุดแล้วนะครับจากทางด้านของนะครับจุดนี้เป็นต้นไป margin ของเราก็จะเริ่มปรับปรุงไปในทิศทางที่ดีขึ้นครับขอบคุณครับ next question please
Okay, so question 3, there is a section asking how do you foresee this potential and competitive threat on the future performance of PTL? Will PTL have to compromise on GMP? I believe we are talking of gross margins to maintain its market share in thin film line as well as other types of film. Okay, so I had already elaborated on how we see the industry scenario. As far as Polyplex Thailand is concerned, or Polyplex Thailand global operations are concerned, you can clearly see the gap between the marginal price and marginal spreads and Polyplex's spreads, and these are because of our differentiated positioning in the market. And to attain this positioning, we have been investing into specialty portfolio, differentiated portfolio over last 8 to 10 years. And normally, as you would also observe in this chart, that normally when the market situation is strong, the industry is at its peak, the gap between our margins and the industry margins narrow. However, when the industry goes through the weaker cycle into lower capacity utilizations, the gap between our margins and the industry margins increase, and this is what you would see in 18-19 or even before that, and you see it happening in quarter 1, 2, and 3. So the gap between our margins or our spreads improves over the industry spreads.
สำหรับนะครับคำถามในข้อต่อไปนะครับเนื่องจากมีสายการผลิตนะครับที่มีการเปิดตัวในอินเดียและจีนนะครับและก็เห็นว่าจะมีผลกระทบกับทางด้าน margin ของธุรกิจหลักของเราหรือไม่นะครับเห็นทางด้านของสิ่งต่างๆเรื่องนี้จะมีผลกระทบกับ margin ของเราอย่างไรท่านผู้บริหารก็ได้ให้คำตอบไปแล้วนะครับแล้วก็ได้อธิบายเหตุผลส่วนหนึ่งไปแล้วนะครับในคำถามที่ผ่านมาทางด้านของสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นนะครับก็จะเห็นได้ว่าเมื่อตลาดนะครับเมื่อทางด้านของนะครับมีผลประกอบการนะครับตลาดไปในทิศทางเชิงบวกเนี่ย margin ระหว่างทางด้านของบริษัทของเรากับ margin ของอุตสาหกรรมนะครับทางด้านของจะมีช่องว่างอยู่น้อยมากนะครับแต่ว่าถ้านะครับเมื่อทางด้านของนะครับก็คือว่าทิศทางของตลาดนะครับไปในทิศทางที่อยู่ในช่วงขาลงจะเห็นว่า margin ของเรานะครับมีช่องว่างแตกต่างจาก margin ของอุตสาหกรรมโดยเฉลี่ยทั่วไปนั่นก็คือ margin ของเรานะครับจะสูงกว่านะครับ margin โดยเฉลี่ยในอุตสาหกรรมนี้ครับขอบคุณครับ next question please
Okay, and as far as the gross margins for standard films are concerned, obviously they will track the industry margins. However, they will, given our positioning, they'll remain better than the industry margins for standard films as well. On the other hand, we continue to grow our specialty portfolio, and that would, to quite some extent, compensate for the reduction in margins that we see going to the lower capacity utilization of the industry.
ก็นอกเหนือไปจากนะครับ margin ของทางด้านของผลิตภัณฑ์แผ่นฟิล์มของเรานะครับซึ่งเป็นแผ่นฟิล์มมาตรฐานจะสูงกว่านะครับ margin ของทางด้านของแผ่นฟิล์มในอุตสาหกรรมโดยเฉลี่ยทั่วไปแล้วนะครับเราได้มีการลงทุนอย่างมากทีเดียวนะครับในเรื่องของสายการผลิตทางด้านของแผ่นฟิล์มที่เป็น specialty นะครับเพื่อชดเชยทางด้านของ margin ที่ลดลงในส่วนของแผ่นฟิล์มมาตรฐานนะครับนี่ก็เป็นกลยุทธ์ส่วนหนึ่งของบริษัทครับThank you. Next question, please.
Suprita, can you take the question on FX losses?
Yeah, so we have a question on the substantial forex losses that were reported in this quarter. So the question is that how does the company plan to prevent or hedge such losses from occurring in the future? Yeah, I think we've received similar questions in the past as well. And we've clarified our stance that these are basically book restatement losses, unrealized losses. And our focus is to hedge them only to the extent of repayment that's due, because these are obviously long-term loans. And most of these losses are actually at our Indonesia and the US subsidiary, because the borrowings which were made for the expansions, there was a sharp depreciation of the local currency, the Indonesian rupiah against the euro and the dollar loan. And normally, as per the forex policies, we cover our exposures over a next 90-day period. So whatever is the repayment, we take forward contracts to naturally hedge or to cover the exposures. But for the long-term period, the purpose of taking the loan in a foreign currency was to create a natural hedge against the repayment, to hedge them basically against the surpluses we have in other currencies. So if a unit is export-oriented, we would have surpluses in either euro or dollar. And to that extent, it makes sense for us to borrow in foreign currency and not in local currency. So that purpose gets defeated if we swap the currency of the loan to local currency purely from avoiding an FX exposure. So that defeats the entire purpose of borrowing the forex currency loan, which is why our focus would continue to remain on hedging only the repayments that are aligned to the next 90-day tenor, which is 3 months. Whereas on the long-term loan horizon, they continue to remain unrealized exposure for the company, which is why we even choose to normalize the impact of such forex losses and report normalized earnings either for dividend consideration or for any other analysis.
ทางด้านของนะครับผลขาดทุนจากในเรื่องของอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนที่เกิดขึ้นนะครับนี่ก็เป็นทางด้านของคำถามที่มีการถามขึ้นมานะครับจริงๆแล้วก็คือว่าเป็นผลขาดทุนนะครับซึ่งไม่ได้มีการเกิดขึ้นจริงนะครับเป็นผลขาดทุนซึ่งเรามีการบันทึกไว้นะครับในทางบัญชีเท่านั้นนะครับเนื่องจากในเรื่องของลักษณะของสินเชื่อที่เรามีการดำเนินการนะครับเป็นอัตราเงินไม่ว่าจะเป็นค่าเงินยูโรหรือดอลลาร์นะครับเพื่อให้จุดประสงค์เนี่ยเป็นไปตามการดำเนินงานตามกลยุทธ์ของบริษัทนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็โดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งในส่วนของแผนใน90วันนะครับที่เรามีการทำ hedging ไว้ขอบคุณมากครับ Thank you. Next question please.
Okay, so there are a few questions on Turkish earthquake and plant situation, so which I have already covered. There's again a question on what impacted the gross profit margin of Q3, which we have covered, and also outlook for Q4, which we have covered. Next 2 to 3 years, given the outlook of additional capacity of China, we have discussed about it. There's a question on how is demand growth profile in next 2 to 3 years, which segment contribute to the growth and which segment is weakening. Does PTL benefit from the trend? So as I said, demand growth, the real demand continues to grow at a pace of 6 to 8%. So we don't see any challenge there as far as packaging is concerned. Due to the recessionary pressures and challenges the economies are facing right now globally, there is a weakness in demand as far as industrial segments are concerned. However, within the industrial segments, as I mentioned earlier, electric vehicle, lithium-ion battery segment continues to grow. And also, there are quite substantial investments being made towards flexible electronics. And in our industry terminology, we call it film for MLCCs. So these are multi-layered ceramic capacitors. These are miniature capacitors where polyester film is used as a liner. So this continues to grow quite significantly, and solar or photovoltaic industry continues to grow quite significantly where our films are used. And because we have almost all the products required for these industry segments, we will definitely set to benefit from the growth of these segments in quarters and years to come.
ในส่วนนะครับคำถามต่อเนื่องไปก็มีคำถามนะครับเกี่ยวข้องกับผลกระทบจากทางด้านของแผ่นดินไหวนะครับซึ่งท่านผู้บริหารก็ได้มีการตอบไปแล้วนะครับแล้วก็มีคำถามนะครับเกี่ยวข้องกับการเติบโตของในส่วนของความต้องการหรืออุปสงค์ในช่วงอีก 2-3 ปีข้างหน้านะครับก็อย่างที่นะครับท่านผู้บริหารได้เกริ่นไปในตอนต้นนะครับว่าทางด้านของอุปสงค์หรือความต้องการของผลิตภัณฑ์ของเราก็ยังคงมีการเติบโตอย่างต่อเนื่องประมาณ 6-8% ต่อปีนะครับโดยเฉพาะอย่างยิ่งในเรื่องของภาคอุตสาหกรรมนะครับทางด้านของบรรจุภัณฑ์หรือแพคเกจจิ้งต่างๆนะครับซึ่งก็จะเกิดผลดีนะครับกับทางด้านของบริษัท Polyplex นะครับ Thank you. Next question please.
There's also a question, what is the biggest threat to PTL and how much you can mitigate it? So I would say I see these challenging market situations as an opportunity for Polyplex. One, it gives us an opportunity to expand our specialty and product portfolio. Our standing in the market, our positioning in the market will ensure and continues to ensure that our lines run full. None of our lines, despite the challenging market situation in the last 2 quarters, none of our lines were stopped for want of orders. Even in the last quarter, which is generally a weak quarter, given the Christmas and New Year holidays. So that's a strength of this company. The customer penetration is one, market penetration is another. The spread, geographical spread of customer base and the spread of product portfolio. This is something that has determined our positioning. Today, if any of our customers think of any innovation, they come to Polyplex. In last 3 to 4 months, we have got several inquiries and we are working with our customers to grow our product portfolio jointly with the customers. And this would trend upwards in quarters and years to come. For sure, given our positioning, we will outperform the industry in coming quarters and coming years. That is for sure.
ก็ทางด้านของนะครับมีคำถามเกี่ยวกับของทางด้านของก็คือในส่วนของความเสี่ยงที่สำคัญนะครับที่ทางด้านของบริษัทของเราเผชิญอยู่นะครับและเราจะบรรเทาความเสี่ยงนั้นได้อย่างไรนะครับก็ทางด้านของบริษัทของเรานะครับทราบถึงในเรื่องของความท้าทายของสภาวะการตลาดในปัจจุบันนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นการกระจายตัวนะครับการสร้างความหลากหลายในเรื่องของ Product Portfolio ของเรารวมทั้งการกระจายตัวนะครับการเจาะกลุ่มไปในกลุ่มลูกค้าต่างๆและก็ทางด้านของภายในตลาดต่างๆซึ่งถือว่าเป็นกลยุทธ์ที่สำคัญแล้วก็เป็นจุดแข็งนะครับของบริษัทของเราในตลาดครับ Thank you. Next question, please.
Okay, there are a few questions on progress of the deal of takeover of the Polyplex. So here I would like to say that the management cannot respond to actually market rumors. So that is what I can say about these.
ส่วนคำถามในเรื่องของนะครับทางด้านของความก้าวหน้าในดีลในเรื่องเกี่ยวข้องกับการ take over Polyplex นะครับตอนนี้นะครับท่านผู้บริหารก็ต้องขออนุญาตนะครับก็คือยังอาจจะไม่สามารถนะครับที่จะตอบท่านได้ในตอนนี้แต่ถ้าเมื่อมีความก้าวหน้านะครับเมื่อไหร่จะรีบแจ้งนะครับให้กับท่านของท่านนักลงทุนได้ทราบทันทีครับ Thank you. Next, please.
Suprita Rajtosh, can you take up this question, which is in Thai?
Yes, from the announced performance, and the question is that the cost of the raw material really went up. That really impact the GPM to only 14%. So the investor would like to ask about the trend of this quarter, about whether the price of the raw materials will go down or not, and how is that gonna impact the GPM? Thank you.
Okay, so hello. Yeah. So on this gross profit margin and increase in raw material cost, as you might be aware that our industry is basically raw material pass through. So if raw material goes up, the prices will be adjusted to that extent. If raw material is going down, prices will get adjusted definitely in the prices. So there may be a lag of 1 or 2 months. So raw material is not a big factor. But what is impacting is the declining value additions, as we can see in the chart. So if value addition is very low, the raw material or COGS as a percentage of sales will be higher. So that is the reason of declining margin. Raw material per se is not a area of concern.
ทางด้านของต้นทุนของวัตถุดิบนะครับไม่ใช่เป็นประเด็นซึ่งเรานะครับที่จะก่อให้เกิดเป็นประเด็นปัญหากับเรานะครับเนื่องจากอุตสาหกรรมของเรานะครับราคาต้นทุนวัตถุดิบที่เพิ่มขึ้นนะครับก็จะสะท้อนอยู่ในราคาของผลิตภัณฑ์นะครับของเราที่จะเพิ่มขึ้นซึ่งทางด้านของลูกค้าของเรานะครับก็จะต้องจ่ายมากขึ้นด้วยนะครับแต่ในเรื่องของการลดลงของทางด้านของ value addition นะครับน่าจะเป็นประเด็นซึ่งเราจะต้องจับตามองต่อไปนะครับซึ่งก็จะเป็นประเด็นสำคัญทีเดียวนะครับในส่วนของ value addition and the next question asking whether this quarter do you expect that we may have experienced the foreign exchange loss again And the next one is also in Thai language. They asked, got the news from IVL that they might come and acquire PTL. So what do you think, is that acquisition will benefit PTL or not? Thank you.
Okay, on the second question about the expected loss on exchange rate, I think it's quite difficult for anybody to take an estimate of what would be the closing rate, because the assets and liabilities restatement happens at a rate which is the last date prevailing at the end of the quarter. So depending on what is the movement of that rate and the comparison to the closing rate of the previous quarter end, we could either be booking a gain or a loss. But as I mentioned earlier, these are book restatement gains or losses. And as a management, our focus is not on managing these unrealized forex gains or losses. Our focus is to manage the operational forex movements, for which we do take forward contracts, as I explained earlier. On a fortnightly basis, we cover our surplus or deficit positions in each of the currencies for the next 90-day period. So I think overall, what would be the net result of forex fluctuation, whether it's going to be a gain or a loss? At least on the unrealized part, on the loan restatement, I think that would be something that is beyond our control. We would not be able to comment. But what I can say is, over a longer period of time, we would see that these losses and gains even out. I mean, it can't be a unidirectional gain or a loss over several quarters. So like, for example, if you see in this year, we have seen a massive loss in this quarter, but we have seen gains in the quarter two. So over a longer period of time, if we see these tend to even out. So our focus should not be on these unrealized book restatement gains or losses.
ครับทางด้านของท่านผู้บริหารนะครับก็ให้คำตอบไปแล้วเราก็ไม่ควรจะมุ่งเน้นนะครับในส่วนของผลกำไรขาดทุนจากอัตรานะครับแลกเปลี่ยนเงินตราซึ่งมีความผันผวนนะครับซึ่งเป็นผลกำไรหรือผลขาดทุนที่ไม่เกิดขึ้นจริงนะครับเป็นผลกำไรหรือขาดทุนที่เรามีการบันทึกไว้ทางบัญชีเท่านั้นนะครับและก็ทางด้านของนะครับท่านบอกว่าแนวโน้มส่วนใหญ่นะครับอย่างเช่นถ้าผลขาดทุนที่เกิดขึ้นนะครับจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนเกิดขึ้นในไตรมาส1นะครับแล้วก็ไตรมาสต่อไปเนี่ยก็จะเกิดผลนะครับของการก่อนการเกิดกำไรขึ้นได้นะครับโดยปกติแล้วจะมีนะครับผลกำไรแล้วก็ผลขาดทุนนะครับจากอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนที่เกิดขึ้นสลับกันไปนะครับจะไม่เกิดผลขาดทุนนะครับไปในทิศทางเดียวกันตลอดเป็นระยะเวลานานๆครับแล้วก็ในระยะยาวนะครับมักจะชดเชยกันได้นะครับอย่างค่อนข้างเท่าเทียมกันครับขอบคุณครับ next please thank you
Okay, so there are a few questions on production costs, whether cost plus margins not valid. As far as the production costs are concerned, the main increase in production costs have happened in Europe because the rising energy prices. The energy prices have started to come down now. However, in the last quarter, there was a significant increase in the price of gas, which led to increase in price of electricity, because in Turkey we generate our own electricity. Now, given the weak market situation, obviously all the cost increases were not. It was not possible to pass on all the cost increases to the market. But some of the cost increases were definitely passed on to the market. At the same time, we have also seen a significant increase in electricity costs in Thailand. Just to give you a comparison, in Indonesia, the cost of electricity is around 7 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. Compared to that, currently in Thailand, the electricity cost is around 14 cents per kilowatt hour. So on one hand, for Polyplex Thailand, standalone operations is not a good news. On the other hand, we have significant investment in Indonesia, which is becoming very cost competitive location within the region, because most our competition in Thailand, we have two competitors in Thailand, which are servicing the Southeast Asian market and Asia Pacific market, if we exclude India. They are exposed to this increase in electricity cost in Thailand, whereas our Indonesian operation benefits from the low electricity prices.
ในเรื่องของนะครับก็คือต้นทุนในเรื่องของการผลิตของเรานะครับแน่นอนว่าสิ่งที่ส่งผลกระทบสำคัญนะครับก็คือว่าต้นทุนในเรื่องของค่ากระแสไฟฟ้านะครับทางด้านของ Facility ในตุรกีของเรามีการผลิตกระแสไฟฟ้าเองนะครับและก็ในตลาดยุโรปนะครับแน่นอนเนื่องจากต้นทุนค่าพลังงานเพิ่มขึ้นย่อมส่งผลนะครับโดยเฉพาะต้นทุนในเรื่องของค่าพลังงานส่งผลต่อต้นทุนการผลิตของเรานะครับแล้วก็ต้นทุนในเรื่องของค่าไฟฟ้าในประเทศไทยนะครับสูงกว่าในอินโดนีเซียนะครับแต่เนื่องจากเรามีการลงทุนนะครับอย่างมากทีเดียวในทางด้านของโรงงานการผลิตที่อินโดนีเซียซึ่งก็จะให้บริการกับตลาดในภูมิภาคนี้นะครับ Thank you.
Suprita, I think we have run out of time. Is it?
Yeah, so I think we ran short of time. We were not able to cover all the questions, but we hope that whatever questions have been addressed were satisfactory. So thank you very much for participation. Sawadee ka.
ขอบคุณมากครับนั่นคือเวลาทั้งหมดที่เรามีขอบคุณมากสำหรับการเข้าร่วมกับการประชุมในวันนี้ขอบพระคุณครับ
ขอบคุณนะครับ
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ขอบคุณค่ะ